You don't sabotage because you're broken. You sabotage because your brain is trying to protect you. It might just be the most misunderstood act of self love. And once you really get this, you'll stop fighting yourself and you'll start listening. You say you want change, you make the plan, you write out the goals, you visualize the outcome, and for a few days, maybe even a couple of weeks, you're like on fire. You're doing the thing. You're waking up early, you're eating clean, you're getting your workouts in. You're starting to feel like someone new, and then it happens. You sleep through your alarm. You skip one workout, which then becomes two, and now you haven't gone to the gym in a week. You find yourself in the pantry with a bag of chips at 10 p.m., and suddenly you're just right back where you started, only now it feels so much worse. Because now there's guilt, there's shame, there's self loathing. You start saying things like, I'm such a mess. Why do I always ruin everything? Maybe I just don't have what it takes. But let me ask you something real. What if the sabotage wasn't the failure? What if it was protection? Because I've lived this story in 100 different ways. There was a season in my life where I couldn't wait for Friday night. And it wasn't because of the music or the people, but because that was the one time where I felt free to let go. Drinking for me wasn't just a social habit, it was a ritual of release. Every single weekend, going out and drinking, and alcohol specifically, gave me something I didn't know how to give myself, which was permission to be present, permission to stop fixing, permission to laugh too loud, to move without stiffness, to speak without filtering every word. And my brain caught on. It realized, hang on a second, this is the only moment she lets herself feel alive. So it wired in. Of course, I kept doing it. It became the easiest pathway to freedom. And then there's also food. I used to beat myself up every time I reached for junk food. I would tell myself, you were doing so well. Like, why did you blow it again? And then it hit me. One night, as I was about to binge eat through Popeyes and I was watching one of my favorite Netflix shows, I realized this is the only time I let myself relax. It wasn't even about the food, it was about what the food unlocked, which was rest, stillness, comfort. My brain knew I wouldn't just sit down and relax on my own, so it gave me a reason to. That handful of junk food, that was my nervous system pulling the emergency brake, telling me, sit down, stop, we're not okay. I didn't realize how terrified I was of rest because to me, resting felt like laziness. It felt unsafe. It felt like falling behind. But to my brain, rest was survival. And if it had to seduce me there with cookies and Netflix, it would. So while I was calling it sabotage, my brain was calling it strategy. My nervous system was literally saying, I don't care about your goals. I just care about keeping you safe, baby girl. Okay? This is why so many of us keep relapsing into old patterns, not because we're weak, but because we haven't met the need underneath the behavior. And until you do, your brain will keep dragging you back to whatever feels more familiar, whatever feels more manageable, more regulated, even if it costs you everything that you say you want. And here's what no one tells you. Self-sabotage isn't destruction, it's your brain trying to solve a problem. Not in a logical spreadsheet kind of way, not with your goals in mind, but in the only way it knows how. Biologically, because your brain is a survival machine. It doesn't care about your six pack or your six-figure business. It cares about one thing, which is keeping you safe. And here's the wild part. Every single behavior you call bad, every moment of procrastination, of overeating, numbing, scrolling, snapping, it's not random. It's not weakness. It's your brain running its best possible program to meet a deep unmet need. So let's break it down. If you keep ghosting your goals, maybe deep down your nervous system believes that success will make you more visible, and being visible for you has just never felt safe. So your brain throws you into hiding the moment things start to work. Or maybe you keep eating late at night. Maybe food is your portal to rest like it is for me. And maybe it's the only way your body knows how to slow down after a day of pushing, proving, and pretending. Or maybe for you, it's staying in toxic relationships. Maybe chaos is familiar and the brain doesn't crave what's healthy, it craves what's predictable. Because unpredictability equals danger, and your nervous system would rather keep you miserable and alive than happy and unsure. And here's the kicker. Whatever you won't give to yourself directly, whether that's rest, joy, freedom, love, or stillness, your brain will go around you to get it. It'll find a backdoor. It'll pick a coping mechanism that gives you a temporary hit of what you're starved for, even if it costs you long-term peace. That's why willpower alone fails every single time, because you're not fighting laziness, you're fighting a protective pattern that was built for survival. And the behavior isn't the problem. The problem is that underneath the behavior, there's a need that's been ignored for too long. And the longer you ignore it, the louder the sabotage gets. It's not a discipline issue, it's a needs issue. And the moment you stop asking, how do I make this behavior go away? And start asking, what is this behavior trying to give me? You take back your power. You stop making war with yourself and you start healing the real root. So what if you stopped judging your sabotage and started decoding it? What if instead of constantly asking, why do I keep ruining things, you start asking, what is this part of me trying to protect? Because once you understand the need underneath the behavior, you stop shaming yourself and you start leading yourself. This is where everything changes. This is a moment where you shift from someone who keeps falling back into the same patterns to someone who finally understands why they were built in the first place. You built these habits for a reason. At some point in your life, that coping mechanism, it worked. It kept you safe. It helped you survive. It helped you manage stress, fear, rejection, pressure, whatever your nervous system couldn't handle at that time. So instead of fighting that part of you, you get to thank it. You get to say, thank you for keeping me safe, but I've got it from here. Because you're not powerless anymore. You're not the same version of you who needed that crutch. You are becoming someone new, and that requires you to build new ways of meeting old needs. Let me show you what this looked like for me. Instead of chasing freedom and alcohol, I started designing my life in a way where I felt free on purpose. I scheduled joy, I planned play, I built rest into my week without apology. Instead of waiting for junk food to let me relax, I began giving myself full permission to unwind. No guilt, no trade-offs, just true unapologetic stillness. This is the work I now do with my clients. One of my clients, for example, struggled deeply with bipolar disorder. In our recent session, we discovered her depressive episodes were her body's way of forcing her to rest. And her manic episodes, they were her nervous system's only access point to freedom and self-expression. Now that she understands this, one of her tasks to work on is to plan around her rhythms and to build in a structured rest and safe creative expression so she doesn't need to burn out to feel alive anymore. That's the shift I want for you. You don't need to fight your brain, you need to partner with it. And when you do, you stop operating from fear, avoidance, and panic, and you start operating from clarity, safety, and trust. Because guess what? When your brain feels safe, you don't need to sabotage. When your needs are honored, you don't need to cope. And when you stop living in survival mode, you finally make room to lead. You go from being the person who always falls off to the person who never needs to escape their life in the first place. And that's not just behavior change, that's an identity upgrade. Here's what I want you to truly hear. You were never the problem. The version of you that's been sabotaging, that version was the one keeping you alive, keeping you grounded, keeping you just like sane in a world that taught you that rest is lazy, that joy is earned, and survival is the same as success. But that version, it's tired and ready to evolve. You don't need to keep building a life you constantly have to escape from. You don't need to keep waiting for breakdowns to give yourself permission to breathe. You can build a life your nervous system actually feels safe in. One where freedom isn't something you chase on the weekends, it's something you live in daily. So the next time you find yourself spiraling or numbing or procrastinating or quitting, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what part of me is still waiting to feel safe? And then go give that part what it's been begging for. Because your future self, is already watching and waiting for you to show that peace, power, and progress can all exist in that same life. This is how you break the pattern. This is how you stop surviving and start leading. And if you don't want to do this work alone, if you're ready to stop looping in the same patterns and want to finally rewire your brain to feel safe with success, then let's talk. Book a free clarity call with me and let's uncover the real root behind your sabotage so that we can build a plan that makes you feel unstoppable, not unsafe. The link is in my description. Your next level is not about doing more, it's about becoming someone who doesn't need to sabotage anymore. Let's build that version of you together.